Welcome to episode 1 of season 2 of Surrendering to the Signs. I'm your host, Laura Gates, and it's incredible that we've made it further than most podcasts make it. Only about 8% make it past the first 10 episodes. And technically, although this is episode 1 of season 2, this is our 10th podcast. So join me in celebrating our accomplishments. Also, over at surrenderingtothesigns.com, you can download our free e-guide. We also have stories of all of our guests with more information on their backgrounds if you want to look them up. In Surrendering to the Signs, we talk about signs, synchronicities, the nudges that the universe sends us, guiding us on our soul's path. Those places those times where we get goosebumps, where the hair on the back of our arm goes up, where we just have this inner knowing, or there's an inner voice, or some people actually hear actual voices guiding them and telling them what to do in order to live their soul's path. And you'll hear that in a couple of the stories that we share in this season. But I also want to point out there's the signs that tell us don't go in this direction, don't go down this path, right? And then there's people who come into our life. So it's not just signs through the external events, but also people who show up along the path. And I want to talk about that a little bit in terms of season 2's guests. So Yana, who you're going to hear from in the next episode, she and I met on Facebook. And then in the process of the conversation, realized that we had actually met 10 years prior. I'll let that story unfold when you listen to it, but it was quite surprising to me how we found out we knew each other. Then in the next episode, we have Tim, who I knew from high school, reconnected later in life, and he's going to share his story of going through recovery. I'm so grateful he's joining us with a very vulnerable, intimate conversation about what it's like to hit rock bottom and go through an intervention and come out the other side grateful and positive. And then we have Nancy LaRocca, who, again, I met at a business conference where she was speaking things about the spirituality from the stage that completely stunned me. And she and I met and had several years of work that we did together. And so it's also about how when we meet someone, sometimes it's a 5-minute conversation, and I'm going to talk about an interaction I had on a train. And sometimes it's a lifetime, right? How many of us have met people who said, oh, I went on a first date with this person and I know I'm going to marry them. Or I went to high school with this person and we reconnected 40 years later. Or, these stories of encounters that can be just a brief moment of I see you, I hear you, I'm here to support you. Or it can be like a decision of this is the person I'm going to spend the rest of my life with. This week, I actually left my house. Like many of you, I work from home, I work on Zoom. And this week, for some reason, almost every day, I was meeting someone for coffee or for lunch or touring a location or participating in a mentoring group. So it was one of those weeks where I met a lot of new people and met them in person. And that feeling of that spark of we're here to teach something to each other. We're here to share something with each other. We're here to support each other. And so I just want to encourage you when you encounter people to not the usual social pleasantries, but also why are we meeting? What is the universe trying to teach me or show me with this encounter with this person? And, these are not always necessarily positive encounters. I had a difficult interaction a couple weeks ago, and I had to really look in the mirror and ask myself, what was my part in this interaction? How did I contribute to this interaction? What would I do differently going forward? And not only was that a great learning opportunity for me, but it also allowed me to call on my support system, not to take my side of, oh, you're a victim of this person who said this thing to you, but really more from a perspective of help me see something I'm not seeing, help me learn, help me grow from this encounter. I was thinking recently of another encounter that I had where I'd been in an airport in Newark. It was late at night, and I got a text from a client, a new client, who was, I had missed a deadline, and he was not happy about this. And I was emotional about it. I had been with an organization for 20 years. I was trying to build my own business, and this person was a newer client. And after this text came in, I opened a book that I had bought at the bookstore at the airport by Marshall Goldsmith called Triggers. And clearly the client had been triggered. I had been triggered by the client being triggered. And just reading the first paragraph of that book, I was like, oh, there's so much insight and learning here that I went to Marshall Goldsmith's website. I saw that he was teaching a workshop on something called stakeholder centered coaching. I signed up for that workshop in Silicon Valley and attended it shortly after. And in that program, I learned a lot, but I also had a difficult encounter with someone who misunderstood something that I was saying. And we did a role play, and he was just kind of tough in the role play. And I remember just thinking, "Ugh, that was really not fun." And he later apologized and we fixed the dynamic. But a couple weeks later, I was at another event, a Wisdom 2.0 event, which you're going to hear about when I talk with Nancy in this next series. Quite a pivotal time in my life during 2015 and 2016 was both attending Wisdom 2.0 events and creating events for Wisdom 2.0. I was at an event, and this person who had been in this training with me, who we had kind of a strange dynamic, said, "Hey, I'd love to put your name forward for this global tech company that's looking for coaches. Can I do that?" And I said, "Sure." And that led to a client that I've had for almost 10 years now that has given me a tremendous amount of work and growth and learning. And, I could have written that encounter off right away in there and never connected with this person again. And it just goes to show you that, sometimes we feel like something is a quote unquote negative encounter or a bad experience when truly we don't know what's going on for that person. They don't know what's going on for us. And when we're able to get past that and see them as human beings and be empathetic and put ourselves in their shoes and build that relationship. And in this case, again, it was a day long of a workshop. And I think the next day we had lunch. And you just never know what is going to come out of these experiences with people. I was thinking how I was recently on a train going from London to Glastonbury, and I was going on a spiritual retreat in Glastonbury for the first time. And in London, you buy the ticket in Paddington Station before you get on the train. So you have a reserved seat. And so I'm in my reserved seat next to the window, and a woman comes up to me and she looks at the number on her ticket. She looks at me. I look at her. I show her my ticket in case she's wondering if she's supposed to be at the window. And she kind of looks around at the car, and I look around at the car, and it's practically empty. And she kind of mumbles like, "I'm not sitting here. There's a whole empty car. I'm going to go sit by myself." And I felt a little offended, frankly. I felt a little rejected, although I probably would have done the same in her shoes, and I was very happy to have my seat empty next to me and be looking out the window. But you know how when you're traveling, you kind of have a little bit of a different mindset of these encounters with people, like, "Oh, who knows who I could meet and sit next to for the next 2.5 hours." At any rate, I arrive at the train station, which was about a 30-minute trip away from downtown Glastonbury. And I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to have to figure out how to get there. I knew I could Uber, I could taxi. And I said, I'm just going to put this out to the universe to guide me how I'm going to get from this train station to Glastonbury. I walk out of the train station and I look in front of me, and it's the same woman who had walked away from the seat, standing in front of a taxi, putting her suitcase into the taxi. And I kind of catch her eye and I look at her and she looks at me, and I think, well, she rejected me once. Had to kind of push myself to be willing to be rejected again. I walked up to her, and at the same time, we both said Glastonbury. And she said, "I'd be happy to share a cab with you." And that was the start of the most delightful conversation in the cab, and we spent the entire day together going to all these different spiritual sites and walking up this gigantic hill to the tower. It was so incredible. In fact, I had bought a ticket the night before for an event that she attended, and it was a last-minute decision for her to hop on this train from London to Glastonbury because she was from Northern Ireland. And it was just an example to me of how we can't let first impressions stop us from connecting with people, how we never know what a person's purpose is in our life. And I think we had one WhatsApp exchange since then, but it was really that day was our experience to support each other and to be in this experience together. I love this idea that the universe is putting people on my path, that it's not even something that I have to make an effort for or go search for people, that when I make myself available, when I put myself out there, the universe responds in kind. I'm thinking about the night that I met my husband. That morning, I woke up and I'd been single for a while, and I thought, you know, I think I'm good. I think I could live life as a single person. I think I'm gonna stop trying this thing called dating. And that night, I bumped into this person on the dance floor, and it turns out to be the person I married. So you just never, ever know where the universe is conspiring on your behalf. And that's what I'd love for you to reflect on as we embark on season 2 is where is the universe conspiring to provide the things that I need to put the people in front of my path who are going to guide me, to give me the learning opportunities, although they might be difficult in the moment. And how many of us have heard stories where people say, oh, it's in the moments of pain, it's in the moments of difficulty, it's in the moments of suffering that I have learned the most. And I certainly could say the same for myself, although I love to say to the universe, I prefer the tap on the shoulder versus the 2x4. So may we all get the tap on the shoulder versus the 2x4. And sometimes the tap on the shoulder feels like it is a 2x4, but getting that perspective and really looking at these experiences as a learning, as a moment in time, and looking back and saying, wow, okay, it was hard in the moment, but I got through it. And in the getting through it, I learned a ton about myself. I learned a ton about others. I learned, in my case, how to forgive, how to see others as the fallible humans that they are who are just doing the best they can with what they've got. And I truly do believe the majority of us are really just doing the best we can with the circumstances we came from, with the backgrounds that we've had, with the ways that we were raised. Our task is how do we see beyond that? How do we see the true human for who they are and bolster each other up and support each other on the path? So we're recording this episode right after Thanksgiving, and I had to cancel Thanksgiving this year because I woke up with a sore throat. And even though I was hosting it, and I thought, well, I could power through and I probably should still do it, I woke up kind of spinning around in my head and feeling guilty and like the good daughter should and the oldest daughter should. And I finally realized, like, no, I don't want to do this. I don't want to power through. I don't want to get sicker by the end of the day than right now. I don't want to make other people sick. So I canceled it. And the minute I canceled it, I felt my whole body relax. And I think this is an important time as we're going into the winter solstice and we're going into the holiday season. I used to teach a program called Wintering Well, and it's really about how do we see this as a time of taking care of ourselves, nourishing ourselves, healing ourselves, if you will, from the crazy year that I know many of us have had. and giving ourselves a chance to reset before the new year starts. And that means maybe looking at the holidays a little differently, looking at how you're spending your time, looking at maybe less to-dos, less shoulds, more time being, more time sitting, reading a book, taking a hike, going to the gym. How can you find the time and the spaciousness right now to sink into this time of year for those of us in the hemisphere that goes through winter? And this is one of the things I appreciate about having moved back to central New York is that it's snowing right now. It's very cold outside. You have to kind of bundle up to take the dog out. It reminds you, it gets very dark very early. And it reminds you that, nature has these cycles and these cycles of downshifting and hibernating and integrating and letting all of the things that have happened this year kind of settle before we embark on the new thing. And in some practices, the new thing is January 1st. In many practices, it's not until later in January or even later in the year. If you look at the Chinese New Year, if you look at astrology, the new year is not on the new year. So don't even pressure yourself to have some kind of goal or word to bring out into the world on January 1st. Really take this time to slow down, take this time to rest. I've had so many conversations with clients this week about the need to take care of ourselves. Clients who've gotten sick, clients who've had stressful experiences in their families. And I'm just hearing this message over and over again. This is a time for completion. This is a time for closure. This is a time for rest, deeply resting. So that's what I'm going to be committing myself to. And so I invite you to join me on this journey. I would love to have you over in season 2, listening to the conversations that we're lining up for you. Come on over to Surrendering to the Signs and see what we're doing in terms of offerings that we're going to be having in 2026. You can listen to us wherever you have podcasts playing in your ears. I wish you all a wonderful holiday season. We'll see you soon.